나무 묘호랭개교 나무 묘호랭개교 나무 묘호랭개교 Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. Thank you so much for being here. I hope this podcast finds you in good health, secure. We're going to continue with Gosho. I've answered a couple of questions in the comments for viewers. If you think you'd like more in-depth answers on things that I provide in the comments, please let me know. I get many ideas for videos that are interspersed amongst these more regular Gosho discussions, study videos, I call them. But sometimes there's some particular question that stands out, and I think, well, this person may be speaking for a lot of people who aren't sure about this. It's maybe a basic concept, maybe it's a broad question, and I have absolutely no qualms about seizing on that opportunity to make an entire video on just that one subject. I'm certainly conscious of the fact that every time I do a video, even though it's only a portion of many Gosho, because they tend to be lengthy, that many subjects are covered in his writings, in Nichiren's writings. And so sometimes, although there's a thematic that sticks out, that he makes a point about, he hits on other notes, I'll call them, of the composition of Buddhism, that sometimes on their own merit some deeper dives, some deeper discussions. And so I love that. I love the opportunity to dig into something more deeply. And so please don't be shy about raising that question in the comments or emailing me. Let me know. Otherwise, I have no idea what it is that you may be frustrated with. And we don't want to be frustrated. We want to. Study is about raising our confidence and therefore our single-mindedness of actualizing Buddha in our lives, yeah? So let's not let anything get in the way of that. Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. All right, so in the vein of what we've been discussing so far, today is a short, I think we can do this in one video, the Gochu Shujo Gosho, ST-139, if you're into that sort of thing, the systematic translation scholarship. Introduction, a brief introduction. This Gosho was written in the 10th year of Bun-ei period, 1273, when Nichiren Shonin was 51 years old. Neither details of the contents of this letter nor its recipient are clear. Reason being, the beginning and the end portions of the letter are missing. A lot of times, as was the custom with most written stuff from ancient times, things were folded in a certain way and put into clay pots to be buried to ensure the endurance of the teachings, or in Nichiren's case, saved in archives and temples and even private collections, but being on perishable materials, things that would degrade over time. And sometimes those outer layers of a folded document or facils roped together, they got exposed to elements much more than the internal parts. And so the beginning and ending of things often are unreconstructible. So, a little background on that. Nichiren quotes a sentence from the third chapter of the Lotus Sutra, a parable. All living beings therein are my children, end quote. And annotations of Tendai and Miao explain that only Shakyamuni Buddha is completely equipped with the three virtues of the master, teacher, and father. Nichiren insists, therefore, that all human beings in this Saha world should embrace Shakyamuni Buddha because they are all his children, while other Buddhas, such as the Buddha of infinite life, do not possess the three virtues, and they have no relation to the Saha world. Again, I'm going to take that apart so that it makes it abundantly clear to our modern minds that this is simply another way of saying that Shakyamuni is the founder, the teacher of Buddhism. And we practice Shakyamuni's teachings in order for us to self-practice and attain our own enlightenment, our own Buddha-ness, exactly the same way he did. All of the other Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, all those are personages. They're examples given by Shakyamuni as an expedient means to understand the functions of the mind, the different levels of understanding of the mind, how the mind shapes our perception, our experience of life, universal life, all phenomena. So, those who might claim to follow other Buddhas are deluding themselves, thinking that there's other Buddhas superior to Shakyamuni Buddha, missing the critical point that the other Buddhas are Shakyamuni. They're just portions of Shakyamuni's enlightenment, portions of Buddha-ness and the way the mind works. That those are not real things to follow. They're examples, teaching examples, to bring you always back to self-practice. That Buddha is Buddha. There is no different ones. Do you see? So this is what that explanation is. And even in this explanation, it's somewhat convoluted. Yeah? So here we go with Nichiren. People in the world, letter. Questionable translation, doesn't make much sense, but I think it's going to be about you and me. Shakyamuni Buddha, he begins, preaches in chapter 3 of the Lotus Sutra, a parable, quote, all living beings in this world are my children. We understand what that means, right? This is Shakyamuni saying, this Buddha-ness that I have attained, that I have found, that I have awakened in my mind, is the same Buddha-ness that all of you can experience, have available, is already there, simply requires your invocation. And therefore, that Buddha-ness being through me, Shakyamuni, the teacher, the bringer, the exemplar of that Dharma, that truth, am a teacher and parent and master for all humanity. That was the point to begin with, wasn't it? Even before Siddhartha Gautama attained enlightenment, that was his goal. A universal truth, accessible to all, so that we might all live our lives in samsara maximally, without obstacles that create all manner of stress, anxiety, sufferings, right? So, all living beings in this world are my children is a statement to that effect. He is saying, from this point of enlightenment, everyone is related. There are many sufferings in this world, and only I can save all living beings. I, Shakyamuni? No. I, enlightened mind, can save everyone in this world. I, Buddha-ness, can save all living beings. Nichiren goes on, this explains that only Shakyamuni Buddha possesses the three virtues of master, teacher, and parent, and other Buddhas, such as the Buddha of infinite life, are not equipped with them. Again, the same invocation. Shakyamuni is the human, the samsaric entity that has demonstrated Buddha-ness. All other Buddhas are his imagination, his emanation, his expedient means, his tools for teaching this awakening. So therefore, how can those imaginations be your master? How can those imaginations, those characters, personages created for storytelling of examples, be your parent, your what was the other word? Teacher. They're not the teacher, they're the lesson. The only teacher is Shakyamuni. And your experience. But that's yours, that's your self-practice, right? Nichiren goes on, I have already said this many times before. Yes, he has, ad nauseum, in many different ways. But it's easy to miss in this storytelling style what's really going on here. Thus, our study group, right? However, be sure that the words only I can, quote unquote, are not found in Hinayana Sutras, nor in any of the pre-Lotus Mahayana Sutras, which resort to expedient means or do not reveal the truth to those whose capacities to understand are not sufficient. Again, this has been said 100 different ways, yeah? They are the golden words of Shakyamuni Buddha in the Lotus Sutra, validated by the Buddha of many treasures and all other Buddhas from all the worlds throughout the universe. In other words, this is a universal truth. It agrees with every phenomena you can perceive. That's what that means. The Buddhas from worlds all over the universe aren't little fat guys sitting on lotuses coming from Alpha Centauri. They are projections of the enlightenment, the awakening that you and I experience when we invoke our Buddha-ness. That truth that we see of the process of life is no different in any way from every atom, molecule, phenomenon, universal force throughout the entirety of the universe. That's what that means. They are, he continues, the edict of a wise ruler, the instructions of a sage, and the words of the sole wise Father teaching all the people, including Pure Land believers today. It would be most regrettable for us not to comply with the words of Shakyamuni Buddha with these three virtues, commit 20 rebellious sins, and to fall into the hell of incessant suffering, just because we're following erroneous paths. There's only the one teacher. This teaching, expounded in the first half of the Lotus Sutra, is called the theoretical teaching, the Shakyamuni. As we go into the latter half, essential section of the Lotus Sutra, we find doctrines becoming increasingly more profound. According to the Shakyamuni section of the Lotus Sutra, the people in this Saha world have been closely related to Shakyamuni Buddha since 3,000 dust particle kalpas ago, without any relations to other Buddhas, such as the Buddha of infinite life. Chapter 7 of the Lotus Sutra, the parable of a magic city, states, quote, "Those who listened to the teachers then have always been beside those Buddhas." So on and so forth. Destiny has made them meet the preaching of the Lotus Sutra now, end quote. So, in other words, the potential for enlightenment has always been with sentient beings, living beings. Always, in varying degrees. And that very potential is what provided the opportunity for human evolution to bring those people, to expose those people to the Lotus Sutra, the ultimate teaching, right? It's like anything else we experience in life. The more we know, the more we need to know, the more we move toward an all-encompassing knowledge. Even if you don't practice anything, but just grow up. Isn't that the very process of maturity? Coming across opportunities over and over again until you start to see more deeply and maybe shed some earlier beliefs as you construct a bigger, more complete picture. Same is true of the study of Buddhism. Even prior to the study of Buddhism, your first exposure to Buddhism may be the Lotus Sutra. That's entirely possible. That doesn't mean that Buddha-ness and the potential for it wasn't with you in your life until you came up to the Lotus Sutra, because what the Lotus Sutra teachings, the Dharma of Shakyamuni, how to instantiate Buddha in the mind, that perceptive ability doesn't create the perception. The perception has always been there. But your ability to invoke that perception, that's unique to you and time. You see? Does that make sense? Hope it does. This statement tells us that we, the people of the Saha world, have never been in pure lands of the universe of 15 other Buddhas, such as the Buddha of infinite life. Grandmaster Tendai states in his Words and Phrases of the Lotus Sutra, quote, "An old interpretation considers the Buddha of infinite life as the rich father in a parable of the father and son. However, this is incorrect, and today we do not consider the Buddha of infinite life as a wealthy father. It was just a story, an example, a tool of teaching. The Buddha of infinite life is not the Lord Buddha of this Saha world. There is only one Lord Buddha, a man who attained Buddha-ness in this samsaric Saha world, Shakyamuni. So he was never born to and died in this world, right? He's a tale, a story, an exemplar. He's a personage, not an actual person. Again, it's being repeated. He never guided us in this world. There are no relationships formed between the Buddha of infinite life and us like that of father and son. He's a story. There are no words in the Lotus Sutra which state that the Buddha of infinite life is our Dharma teacher or our Lord. That relationship, it's like a relationship to the Lord of the Rings. It's entertaining, but there's no real, tangible relationship there. I hope we all understand that, yeah? There are no words in the Lotus Sutra that say that this particular Buddha is our Lord, teacher, or parent. If you really want to encounter the Buddha, you need to contemplate this with your eyes closed. So this would be a meditation on the true nature of Buddha, not as other, not as outside of your mind, but as a function of your mind. And this is why we do what I call active meditation, eyes wide open, using the perfect mirror of the mandala to penetrate our Buddha-ness, our timelessness in our own samsaric mind. Nichiren goes on. Grandmaster Miao-Lo explains this in his annotations on the words and phrases of the Lotus Sutra. So another master is going to explain this very same thing over again. Shakyamuni Buddha and the Buddha of infinite life have completely different karmic relationships to the people in their past lives, and the worlds they guided are completely different. By birth and in growing up, the Buddha of infinite life and the people in the Saha world have no father-son relationship, end quote. So the entire lifetime story of the Buddha of infinite life is a story, an expedient means, as an example for us to understand the progressive evolution of our enlightenment, our awakening. It's not an actual teacher, it's a teaching. A lot of verbiage here to explain this difference, because throughout time and in Nichiren's day, there are these other sects and schools that claim to be the teaching of Buddha, and they are not. They're teachings of stories created by Buddha. How could they get this so wrong? And getting it wrong, they mislead vast amounts of people, vast amounts of minds, get led down these little stories, and people never accomplish their innate Buddha-ness. They're fooled into thinking that their religiosity and their rituals and their habits praising this story. Really, would you today follow the story of Little Red Riding Hood as though the big bad wolf was your teacher, your sovereign, your master? Would you be trying to emulate the big bad wolf or Little Red Riding Hood or the grandmother or any part of that story? No, come on. We all know it's a story about human behavior. Now you might say, and you might pick out an author of these, the Grimm brothers, or the Brothers Grimm, or Dickens. Well, he's, or she, or whatever the author is, that's the teacher. And there may be something to learn from that person, if only that stories can be inspiring. They can lead to insights. But if you want to emulate one of those storytellers, then you become a storyteller. What we're trying to emulate is enlightenment. And in the Lotus Sutra, Shakyamuni, enlightened Buddha, tells us how to get to that mind of Buddha just as he did. Why would we want to do anything else? It's clear as day when you say it this way, yet hundreds of thousands of people still today are hunting around for magic lanterns, even using the rhetoric of the Lotus Sutra, but converting it into something else. It's really, really as sad as it is frustrating. Yeah. So this point, you hear this point constantly being repeated, it must be important. It must be something we really need to understand constantly as we progress in our practice. Yeah? Mouth drying out. I hate that. Okay. Let's go on. From these statements, Nichiren continues, of Tendai and Miaolo, I would like to think the Buddha of infinite life and other Buddhas in the world all over the universe are like, call them stepfathers, although I don't even like that, but call them stepfathers, whereas Shakyamuni Buddha is the compassionate, real father, the one we have a biological, material connection to. That might be useful to consider. Yeah? Still just another way of saying the same thing. Tendai wrote many works interpreting the Lotus Sutra. However, we should know this interpretation of his to be fundamental and consider Shakyamuni Buddha as the Lord of this Saha world. Will you please get it, Nichiren is saying, that there's only one truth. There cannot be many. If there are many claiming the truth, then surely many of them are mistaken. There's only one truth. Shakyamuni said so. Remember in the Lotus Sutra, Shariputra, there are not two ways or three ways. There is only one vehicle, and this is the teaching of the one vehicle, the one way. We find that Tendai sometimes praises the Buddha of infinite life, depending on sutras he relies on, because that's part of teaching. It's like Vasubandhu, a famous scholar of Mahayana Buddhism, who used to praise Agama Sutras, because there was something to learn in them. Considered from the viewpoint of the second half of the Lotus Sutra, the Honmon, that is essential teachings, we are the real children of Shakyamuni Buddha since the eternal past, 500 dust particle kalpas ago. What does that mean? We keep running into this abstract time thing, like we were there. But it isn't you and I, this body, that were there. It's the karmic potential that's always been there. And the enlightenment, the perception, the experience of that life, Buddha, has always been there. That's what that means. Not you and I on foot, you and I in mental potential. However, we attach ourselves to worldly affairs and lose sight of the Lotus Sutra, stick to old Hinayana, provisional Mahayana Buddhism, and discard the Lotus Sutra, adhere to the first half of the Lotus Sutra even, the Shakyamuni, and forget about the second half, Honmon, expect too much from the sutras which will be preached, and abandon the Lotus Sutra, or are thinking only of the Pure Lands in other worlds in the universe, or the Buddha of infinite life's pure land of bliss, which supposedly comes after you die. This is the situation in Japan he's describing. On the one hand, we have this very, very clear and precise teaching from Shakyamuni, elucidated and restated by scholars since Vasubandhu to Tendai, Miaolo, Dengyo, me, Nichiren. And yet, there's all this confusion. Nichiren goes on, confused by evil monks of 7 or 8 schools of Buddhism, we've abandoned the Lotus Sutra and we've been unable to see Shakyamuni Buddha with the 3 virtues for as long as 500 dust particle kalpas. Because if you're going to use the time analogy that this has always been available since life began, than anyone who would take you off track, who would mislead you, who would take you into their world, not Shakyamuni's Buddha-ness, but this systematic political ego manipulation. How could that not be evil? The true meaning of evil, to be life unaffirming, because life affirming is your Buddha realization, your Buddha-ness, your clarity of this amazing life process. Anyone leading you to believe otherwise is at best creating an enormous obstacle to your awakening, and at worst simply using you as a tool, a mechanism to aggrandize themselves, enrich themselves. I can think of no more evil than that. Human to human, it's a disgusting thing. And so Nichiren is hollering it from the mountaintops. The 22nd facile of the Nirvana Sutra preaches this, quote, "An evil elephant hurts only our body, but an evil teacher or an evil friend destroys both our body and our heart, or our minds." Consider that. Grandmaster Tendai says, quote, "If we keep improper company, we may lose the true purpose, falling into evil realms." Evil realms, as I've described many times, aren't evil places geographically. They're realms of the mind that thwart, destroy, create diversions from the truth of Buddha-ness. Question. In the 23rd chapter, The Previous Life of Medicine King Bodhisattva, in the epilogue section of the Lotus Sutra, women are encouraged to practice the sutra wholeheartedly, so that they may be reborn in the pure land of the Buddha of infinite life upon death. Ugh. What do you think about this? What do you think about it? On the one hand, the Lotus Sutra is the sutra that grants all women the potential for Buddhahood, no different than men. Quite a statement 3,000 years ago, yeah? Still quite a statement today, believe it or not. But to then tell those women that you can only reach, talk about misogyny again, you can only reach Buddhahood after you die. Now go cook, go make the beds. When you die, we'll let you in. What a load of crap! But there's a reason this is in the Medicine Bodhisattva, and this is a very selected, out of context quote. So let's hear what Nichiren has to say about it. Answer. The Buddha of infinite life in the previous life of the Medicine King Bodhisattva chapter is not the same as the Buddha of infinite life in the pre-Lotus Sutra and in the first half of the Lotus Sutra. Oh, so he's a different imagined personage of Buddha than the one we've discussed before with this lengthy description, this lengthy name. Well, it would have been nice to know that. Couldn't you have called him like Buddha of Infinite Life 2? I mean, it is a little confusing, isn't it? But Nichiren is pointing out that within the context of the Lotus Sutra, this personage is not the same personage he spoke about in previous sutras. We're in the Lotus Sutra now. So from the perspective of the Lotus Sutra, these personages, this idea of infinite life, is completely different. Not the same. That's the misunderstanding, the misleading aspect of this. Question. Nichiren goes on, they merely have the same name. The Sutra of Infinite Meaning, Muryogi Kyo, says, quote, Even though they have the same name, their meanings are different. It's even the preface of the Lotus Sutra tells you that they're not the same thing conceptually. The story is different here. Miao Lo says in his annotations on the words and phrases of the Lotus Sutra, quote, even though you find the name of the Buddha of infinite life in the Honmon section of the Lotus Sutra, it does not at all mean the Buddha of infinite life mentioned in the Sutra of Meditation on the Buddha of infinite life. Well, God, it's pretty damn confusing, isn't it? But there it is. Several scholars have pointed this out. You have to take it within an entirely different context. These should dispel all your doubts. After all, bodhisattvas who are advanced in practice may easily come to this Saha world from pure lands in the universe and can only easily go back there. And can also easily go back there. So, again, this is the differentiation between storytelling and the use of language, colorful stories, hyperbole, in order to explicate a concept. But you also have to understand that that explanation is within a context of its own, right? Let me make sure I mark these so I know what I've read. So that's that brief letter. And obviously it's not, we didn't get the introduction, nor do we know who it was written to or how it ends. But there's quite an important kernel of knowledge about the Dharma that we hear repeated over and over again. So we know it's authentic. We know this is the voice of Nichiren. And the next one will be a treatise on the essence of the Lotus Sutra. Oh no, not another treatise. Oh my gosh. I like the treatises because it's a very consistent, linear projection of thought. Nichiren has this style of offering a question, dissecting the sources where the question is already answered, and then, although the question then molds and repeats in different ways, he finally gets to a contemporary point where he says, if you take all of these different answers I've given you that cull from the scholarship of Buddhism in its entirety, then you must know and accept this. And this is the format of his teaching style in his or his doctrinal works or his treatises, which are different, not terribly different, but different from his personal letters, which tend to stay local to one particular subject, right? Even though they can be very, very comprehensive as well. And with all of that said, thank you for listening along. Thank you for your support. Please like, dislike this video. More importantly, please subscribe. Many of you watch these videos and don't subscribe. I don't say that you have to click on the notification bell, although that would be helpful for our practice, is to know that there's I put these videos out almost every day, so I don't know how important it is for, other than a reminder, just like I have to take certain medications at certain times of the day, and I'll forget all about them unless my phone has a little tune that it gives me, and I go, oh yeah, I have to do that now. So, you know, notifications can be very useful. But more important to me is simply that you subscribe so that we can establish our Sangha in the YouTube algorithm and that more people will be able to discover this resource, right? On top of the website resource at threefoldlotus.com and the library, the bookstore resource at lulu.com/Kwun and the mandala resource, right? Everyone should have a mandala. Start there. cafepress.com/Gohonzon, right? Anyway, this is all about creating a large library for anyone who wants to practice Lotus Sutra Buddhism, and certainly research the scholarship of Nichiren in that endeavor. That's what we're here for. Plus all sorts of random videos that I've put up on, why do we chant Namo Myo Renge Kyo? What is Na and Mu? Every question I could certainly think of, and some that you guys have provided opportunities for me to research and answer to the best of my knowledge. Shared experience. Namo Myo Renge Kyo. Be kind to yourself. Take care of your health, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.